A few months ago, we saw Team USA take home gold for men's basketball, a competition which they haven't lost since 2004. Although the margins of victory weren't as impressive as years prior, they still managed to get the job done. But at the start of the Olympic Games, we saw players from Team USA struggle with the learning curve that was presented to them. If you don't know what I mean, well, let me make it as simple as possible. Every single one of the Team USA's basketball members play on different NBA teams. These players are accustomed to the NBA's set of rules for basketball. The Olympics aren't officiated by NBA refs, but are instead officiated by Fiba refs. The NBA and Fiba basketball rules are slightly different, but have a few major differences that affect the play of NBA players in the Olympics. Overall, a majority of the fans have been praising FIBA rules, and in today's video, I'll have a look at different FIBA rules I believe the NBA should adopt. Now without further ado, let's get started. Now before we begin with the first rule change I'd like to see, I wanted to talk about how only 0.8% of everyone watching these videos are subscribed. Not even 1%. I'm hoping that number goes up, so please subscribe because I post some amazing basketball content, and if you don't subscribe, I'd be happy if you left a like. And make sure you leave a comment letting me know what you think of the video or if you have any ideas you'd like to see me create. Now let's get back to the video. The first rule that should be implemented and is actually happening this season is reducing the non-basketball moves to draw fouls. You know what I'm talking about. You know the two players that are usually mentioned regarding this rule. This rule refers to when shooters launch or lean into defenders at abnormal angles, or when the offensive player abruptly veers off his path, often sideways or backwards, into a defender. Another example is when the shooter kicks his leg up or to the side at an abnormal angle, or when the offensive player's arm hooks onto the defender. Basically, this rule was set into place so that the league could crack down on players that initiate contact leading to the defense being called for a foul. Now the tables have turned, and in some cases the offensive player who initiated the contact could be called for a foul. Trae Young, James Harden, and Stephen Curry are a few of the craftiest guys in the league who have been exceptional at getting to the line in past years. It'll be interesting to see how they'll have to change their game to fit to the new rules, as I'm sure they would not want to be called for offensive foul on plays that they would have normally gotten free throws on years prior. The next rule change I'd like to see the NBA copy from FIBA is no defensive 3-second violations. This might be one of the biggest differences between FIBA rules and the NBA rules, but I would like to see it get implemented into the NBA. When asked about this matter after playing in the Olympics, Damian Lillard said, "There's also no defensive 3-second violation, so the paint is usually more crowded. Forcing into the paint is usually playing into a crowd." With the defensive 3-second violation in the NBA, this rule limits how much a defender can help on drives because they can't just stay in the lane. The reason that I think this rule should be abolished is because the NBA is evolving. Many big men have begun to expand their game out to the perimeter. With that being said, most big men can knock down a 3-point shot, so if their defender wants to camp out in the lane, it will leave the offensive player wide open on the perimeter, open for 3. Abolishing this rule would also make the game more authentic in my opinion, while improving the quality of defense. It seems like college basketball players take more pride in their defense, and watching college basketball games is a lot better than NBA games sometimes because of how each possession seems to matter on both ends. In the NBA, not much pride is taken on the defensive end, which might change if help defenders could actually be in the lane and stop someone from diving to the rim. The next change I would want to see implemented is actually slightly controversial. One thing that hits home for NBA fans watching the Olympic Games is the fact that the games go by much faster. This is done on purpose because of the FIBA's rules. For starters, a FIBA game utilizes 4 10-minute quarters while the NBA has 4 12-minute quarters. This would obviously make the game shorter as each quarter has 2 minutes cut down to it. But it's not just the length of each quarter that makes FIBA and Olympic Games shorter. It also has to do with the amount of fouls called and the replay review system. FIBA officials call less fouls and allow a more physical game to be played when compared to the NBA. In the NBA, there are also constant replays which usually take quite a bit of time. Between those two things, the length of an NBA game is drastically longer with the constant stoppage of play. The attention span of most fans is limited, and they aren't going to keep being interested in a game that takes close to 3 hours to complete. A more physical game would also eliminate hand-check fouls and give the defense more of an advantage than in the modern NBA that we see being played today. I believe this rule would bring back the more gritty, defensive-minded attitude to basketball. A lot of old heads would also be very happy to see that the game has taken a more physical direction. Also, in a 40-minute game, each possession is more critical, which would make a more intense game and an overall better game for players on the court and fans watching at home. Now before we get on to the last rule of the video, I just wanted to remind you to leave a like on the video, because if you've made it this far, it means you're enjoying it. It also only takes 2 seconds and is free, and by liking and subscribing, it really helps my small channel to reach new people that love basketball just as much as you do. Make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with the best basketball content on YouTube, and as always, leave a comment letting me know what you think of the video so far, and if you have any other ideas you'd like to see me create. Thanks again. Now with this last rule change, it might sound a bit odd, but it's to actually allow the ball to be touched while on the rim. If you watch any Fiba or Olympic games, you know that one huge difference is that in Fiba, there are hardly any goaltending calls. Players are not allowed to touch the ball on a downward flight to the rim, but once the ball hits the rim, it's fair play for both teams. Any player can make a play for the ball by either tapping or dunking it in, or swatting it off the rim entirely. The NBA uses what they call an imaginary cylinder above the rim, and players are not allowed to make a play while the ball is in that cylinder. This rule change would create some exciting above the rim plays, such as putback dunks or blocks while the ball is still on the rim. As I mentioned before, less goaltending calls are made, meaning less time is reviewed on every game. Adding this rule would also limit the amount of goaltending reviews, as the ball would still be in play while it is on the rim, and there wouldn't be more confusion surrounding the situation. This rule seems like one that the NBA would add the quickest, as there's little to no reason to not add this rule. It only creates more exciting plays while shortening the amount of time spent on reviews. So as you can see, even though the NBA and Fiba are the same game, there are also a lot of differences that separate the two. Many fans have enjoyed watching Fiba basketball during the Olympics, and for good reason too. Fiba seems to be more like the game that everybody knows and loves. A physical, quick game without as many stoppages in play. If the fans would like to see these rules, then why wouldn't the NBA implement them? They also don't bend past rules too much that would affect records drastically. There are even more rules listed that would make the game more authentic and more competitive. I for one would love to see a more balanced game on both ends, not just on the offensive end. When Luka Doncic first arrived to the NBA, he made a remark that it was easier to score in the NBA than it was overseas, and Damian Lillard agreed with him after playing in the 2020 Olympics. Even though the games might not be as high scoring, we could see more strategy, like in high school and college basketball, which would be applied to the NBA level if each possession was meaningful. Adopting these rules would make the NBA more watchable and attract more fans back to the game. And now, as always, I leave it up to you guys. What do you think about the rules I talked about? Is there one that you take away or one that you'd like to see added? Leave a comment letting me know. And while you're there, please leave a like on the video if you made it this far, because if you're watching this, then you really like it. Make sure you subscribe so that you get notified whenever I post, which is daily. And as always, until next time, cheers.